Hello everybody and welcome to the new year. Happy New Year. It's January 2017 and we're here in the sheep shed this afternoon. I wanted to talk a little bit for our first blog of the year about our sheep enterprise. We lamb something like 1,250 Llyn ewes here commercially and then another 250 pedigree sheep. One of the things that we do, and which I've done for many years and found it to work beautifully, is to shear the sheep when we house them. The ewes in here have been shorn for around 3 weeks. Now some people might think it's quite strange to shear sheep in the winter, but actually I found it to be the kindest thing to do. Obviously if you're farming in a harder area where temperatures are cold the whole time and you don't have the ability to put your sheep inside and you're lambing outside, you wouldn't dream of shearing them. But housing them in a nice shed like this and shearing them brings huge advantages. We can go from temperatures of sub-zero, freezing temperatures, right up to sort of 10, 12 degrees overnight. And that puts a huge strain on the sheep's well-being and metabolism. So that constant change in temperatures is not good for the sheep at all. And it'll attract all sorts of bugs and you get all sorts of problems. By shearing them back 3 weeks ago, we'll sort of pick a nice sort of mild time, bring them in, shear the sheep, and then a sheep takes about 24 hours to build a grease covering back up on its coat. So it's just that first 24 hours really that you need to be a little bit careful. We'll stuff the walk-through troughs with hay and build a bit of a wall in between each pen, and the sheep are absolutely fine. If the sheep were woolly and full coated, had a full fleece when they were brought in and left, you'd find that they sort of pant a bit, they're getting overheated. By shearing them, you can hear now, there's 1,250 sheep in here, there's not a sound from one of them. They're extremely content. Obviously they've got ad lib food in front of them, that's very important. And we choose to feed ours, a really nice quality silage as well as hay at this time of the year. And the sheep are actually very, very comfortable. When it comes to lambing time, there's no wool, you can see everything that's happening. The lambs suckle easier because there's no wool. And of course, you don't have the stress of shearing in the summer. So summer shearing's a thing of the past and has been for many years on our farms. It's a huge amount of work and stress getting each mob in and shearing them in the summer. So we have nothing of that at all. So all of the sheep are shorn in January every year and then housed. These are due to be scanned next week, so we'll come back down and get a little bit of filming of that. Usually about the end of January, 3rd, 4th week in January, we'll scan them and then we'll put them into their individual groups, so singles, twins, triplets, etc. Any empty ones we'll mark up and get those sorted a little bit later on. But shearing I have found to be hugely advantageous. It saves on an awful lot of work. The job's done, the sheep are comfortable and they become very contented. The other thing to look out for and to get on top of at this time of the year when the sheep are housed is lameness. Obviously they're in the house, you can see the odd lame sheep, so that gets sorted out. We're pretty much on top of lameness now on our farms. Touch wood, that'll remain the case going forward, and we'll talk about lameness a little bit later on in the summer when it really can become a problem. So we will foot bath the sheep a couple of times when they come in, before they come in, and then perhaps again 10 days later, and that really gets on top of any lameness, and I found that we've just eradicated it by a procedure of sort of careful management and husbandry of the sheep. So that's really not a problem either. These are fed, as I said, ad lib silage. They get fresh silage every day. Water is extremely important if you're housing sheep. They must have fresh water all of the time. A sheep will live for a very long time without any solid nutrition, but starve it of a drink of water and you'll soon get problems very, very quickly. So fresh water is extremely important. We have a very nice rainwater harvesting system in our buildings, and the water is sent through various UV filters and then pumped back into the shed, and that saves us an awful lot of money as well. Bedding up the sheep would get fresh straw 3 times a week. So we'll actually put it in with a machine into the front of the pen and then allow the sheep just to pull it back. So it's minimal amount of work to bed these up as well. I find that these Llyns have adapted to our system extremely well. You know, they're a medium-sized sheep, producing 100% of the lamb and eating a medium amount of food. A little bit later on, we're in January of the year now, we don't lamb until right at the end of March, early April, and I'll talk to you about how we feed them nutritionally, because that's obviously very important in the last third of pregnancy. But with these thlins, you can keep that down to a minimum, so we've saved and made huge efficiencies by breeding these thlin sheep in our system. As I say, these have been shorn for 3 weeks now. They've got a nice little covering of wool. They're certainly not cold. Our shed, we're able to pull down curtains and windbreaks above the doors just to keep any sort of real drafts out when they're first shorn. But other than that, if we get a nice sunny day, the doors are open and we let as much fresh air in as we can. So that's a little bit about shearing sheep. I thought I'd bring it up because some people find it a little bit strange that you shear them in January, but it really does work if you've got a building you can put them in and your system is housing sheep in the winter. So we'll look forward to speaking to you again soon.